Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. We appreciate everybody being accommodating. This was originally supposed to happen on Thursday night at district office, but there were some other more educational, important things that happened on that day, so we apologize for scheduling something on that same day. But we adjusted to today, and we moved it as well. So I am taking attendance. And just a note on there, the next committee meeting date is October 23rd, unless something else should happen to come up, and then we will adjust. Okay, moving to tonight's Safety and Operations Committee agenda. For starters, we have an adder here. We have Phil Mowery, who just wants to spend 5 or 10 minutes to give us an update on the ESCO status from his point of view. Of course, the board and the committee has been kept up to date on our perspectives as we move through the ESCO. Phil, remember, is ours. We hire him, he's part of us, so he's providing us an update. I did attach his summary to the actual board docs document and agenda today that he sent this morning. So without further ado, Mr. Mowery. Hi, Judy.
Thank you, Jim. Very quickly, I'm more than pleased to tell you that things are, the start of school went, in retrospect, very well, particularly at the high school and the middle school. But had I given this talk 2 weeks before that, I would never have thought we'd have pulled it off. But there were considerable delays in equipment deliveries, and in addition to being late, they were wrong. Several units had to be returned, and unfortunately several units could not be returned and obtained in a reasonable period of time. So we reinvented the wheel and rebuilt them on the site, on the roof predominantly. It was the rooftop units that were so badly messed up. But we pushed through that, and the unit ventilator installs at the middle school east, which again were delivered late, so that our schedule was a mess. We managed to get that together. You know, on the summary I put out, you can see that pretty much everything is 100%, with the exception of the auditorium units at Middle School East, because they didn't arrive until last week. And unfortunately, because of the tight schedule we anticipated during the summer, we had half dismantled the existing equipment in the middle of July and into August, because we knew we couldn't get the thing back together in time unless we started early. Well, when the delivery ended up coming in another 2 months late, we had to put those units back together so that you would have air conditioning and ventilation at the beginning of school, which we did. And then we've arranged with the district to have downtime, which is in work right now. We've torn those old units out. You probably, if you drive around the middle school, you notice the big hole in the back. It's the only way we can get anything in and out of there of that size. And so we're proceeding with that. It's going to be another several weeks before that gets online, but we've coordinated all of this with the school district. The other item that's listed on there is the middle school west window replacements and resealing as being essentially a zero. That contractor flat out just became a no-show and a no response during the summer. Obviously, he'd overbooked work during the summer. They had an internal accident where he broke a whole crate of the glass that was scheduled to be put installed, so he had to reorder that. That's now been received at their shop, and they're under an ultimatum to show up on the 23rd and start work, or we're going to go to an alternate manufacturer, which, by the way, is not as easy as it sounds. It's a process we have to go through to declare a contractor in default and go to the next one, but you know, we think we've got his attention. We think he's at a point where he can dedicate it, and the work's going to happen at non-student hours. So he'll be working on weekends or weeknights, overtime, whatever. That's his problem. A couple, also during the process, you notice I listed the fire alarm systems. They're essentially 100%, although I think we're still on temporary use and occupancy permits because we still have a few add-ons to complete. And I think we still have to get a final test out with the Siemens on the new air handling unit duct detectors, because their service schedule is another long lead item. But that went well, and that's really not part of the GIZA, although we've administered it as part of the GIZA, because the same company is doing it. That project was done as a collective group purchasing process and the use of a grant that was received from the state. So both projects are running extremely well at this point in time. We had our backs up against the wall, but we managed to pull it out. A couple other notes that are noteworthy to mention is that CM3, who is the ESCO contractor, recognized we were going to have a tough time getting the school cleaned using just Perk Valley staffing, so they brought in a janitorial contractor to help Joe's staff, Joe Fabrizio's staff, to get it done, and that worked out fairly well. And as I said, we had a fairly clear opening day. There's also an ongoing issue with the high school chiller knocking off prematurely, and we think we know what it is. I've talked with the CM3 engineers, and there's a report somewhere which has not crossed my desk yet, so I don't have all the details, but we think it's a matter of a load issue that's causing it to go down and not reset. But fortunately, because Mother Nature's been so kind to us, for the last couple of weeks, we haven't had any real 90-degree stifling days, and the air conditioning that's there has been working, so that we've been operating in a fairly comfortable mode. As I mentioned, the middle school middle school auditorium units, and by the way, there's two of them. There's one for the auditorium and one for the stage, and the one for the stage is in the way of the one for the auditorium, so it becomes a logistical nightmare trying to work on one or the other. Well, they're all out of there now, so we can work with them, and the new units are on a crate right behind it. So that process is ongoing. In addition, we're following up on a daily basis with heat cold complaints or odds and ends that happens when you do major upgrades to control systems, and CM3 is responding. They have a considerable number of their mechanics on staff here on a regular basis or close by and on call, and they've been following up very good on that. Again, the fire alarm's there, and last but most importantly, the comment I will make to you is that none of the additional cost associated with the delays and the incorrect shipments, and I can tell you it's well beyond triple digits in terms of additional cost to the project. None of those costs are coming to Perk Valley School District. They are being divvied up against the parties responsible. And just to monitor that, I sat in on a couple meetings, one a couple weeks ago, with the major supplier of the equipment that was the biggest problem, and CM3 staff. And I told them that I wanted to sit in on that I wasn't going to say anything unless somebody took a shot at me, but that I wanted to be there as the owner's representative to make sure everything was understood and we were moving in the right direction, which was the outcome of that meeting. So, all in all, we had a very quick and steep mountain to climb, but we did it, and I think you're in pretty good shape, and we will stay with it until we dot the I's and cross the T's as we move along. Do you have any questions?
So for the window seal and caulk replacement,
Yep.
You said the 23rd of this month?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the first non-student day we can work.
Okay. Well, that's a non-student day, so they can work regular time during that day since the building is closed. But are they going to be working after hours then for?
I don't have their daily schedule, okay?
Okay.
And when they show up, we want them there on a day where we can go out and see what they're doing.
Right.
Initially, and then we will get a work schedule from them.
Okay. So that really was my question, was the duration to completion.
Just as a brief answer, when we finally got them to return phone calls, they seemed to think they were going to be able to do this very quickly, so they weren't overly concerned with being restricted to non-student days. Well, saying and doing are two different things, so
Right. Well, it was
we'll
so
wait
quick
till we
they
see
would
what
have
they're
done it over
doing.
the summer.
So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any other questions?
Just a note on Phil's statements, we still have to do balancing at both buildings, which, will come in the coming weeks.
You're talking about for the air handlers?
Yeah, all the air handlers.
Is there a temperature issue for outside that you're not able to do it? Like if it gets to be below a certain temperature, like
It's more about the airflow.
Oh, the airflow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not about a temperature. Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's an airflow problem. We have to rebalance the systems because we put new unit ventilators in, different flow rates. And there is some temperature implications in it.
Yeah.
You know, because we have to have a load on the system, for example, to make the air conditioning units work well.
That's what I was
or the
getting at.
boilers, et
Yep.
cetera. But we're predominantly measuring airflow.
Okay.
Thank you.
So will they, if that's the case, just to follow up to that, if it does become a temperature issue, will there be an opportunity to come back once it gets warm, say like May or
Yeah.
so, and just do like a tweak or whatever if need be, because
Absolutely.
no purpose of having brand new units if they're going to keep areas hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as a side note, this team of ESCO and most of the subcontractors and myself and my company, we've been working here now 10 plus years, and it's worked out extremely well. We've got to the point where they know us, we know them, and we know what they do. We know they're taking every angle in your favor. In fact, the young man who's running this project on site, his children go to your school, and he lives in Trapp right around the corner. So he's really attentive to what's going on.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Committee members, if you have any other questions, just let us know, of course. Phil's here to respond. Thank you, Phil. Okay, moving into our presentation for tonight, we'll start with Chief Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Good evening. Just a review here this evening of some of the activities that went on over the summer break with our team. Our staff training that I had mentioned to many of you, there were some questions when we started this team up a few years back. What will we do with the days in the summer that staff are here, along with monitoring our buildings? We were able to get in some very good training this summer. First one I wanted to highlight for you is the School Safety Symposium that was hosted by the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety. So they highlighted a number of their programs. One which interested me is a county's vape buyback program. So I am involved in conversations with the county board of health about that. That is a non-THC vape program that requires the cooperation of parents for anyone under the age of 18 and or coming out of schools with regards to turning them in. So we have to work out some details with them on that. Initially, the idea was that it would be an anonymous turn-in, much like a drug take-back program that law enforcement runs throughout the county, but it's a bit different than that. So I'll get back to you with what that looks like, but it is something I think we could use here in the district as well as in the community, and it would be worthwhile. So a couple of the other programs we talked about on this particular day was the Student Assistance Program across the county and the support systems that are in place for that. Youth Aid Panel, we reviewed the PACE survey data. The Office of Children and Youth made a presentation to us. The Youth Aid Panel made a presentation to those districts which are currently not enrolled. I will say that just this past week, I accompanied all of our middle school administrators to the district attorney's office, and we met to discuss a youth aid panel at the middle level. It will mirror what we're doing here at the high school with Dr. Fuller and his team. We received wonderful feedback from the program. The DA's office is obviously very pleased with that. The parents and staff that have been involved have given us good feedback as well. So we're going to continue to expand that into our middle schools. And then the Division of Emergency Management went over some training and exercise plans across the county. We talked to them one specifically about reunification. So I'm working with Dr. Russell and the curriculum and instruction team about what day would be best for us to go through that. And then there was a keynote by Dr. Peter Langman. He's a world-renowned expert in school shooters and their backgrounds. He's a psychologist that operates out of an office in Allentown. He's a graduate of Lower Merion High School, but provided a very insightful conversation to those of us that were in attendance. I've heard him speak several times. He's always full of good information, and I think our team took a lot away from that. Our entire team attended that specific training, which was held in Upper Merion. The next one we attended this summer was called the Penn SSI. experience. So the Pennsylvania School Safety Institute is a division of PSBA. They're housed in their building out in Mechanicsburg. So we took a day trip out there and spent a little over 6 hours again with our entire team, going through some virtual simulations in a house that they've designed. I say house, but it's be configured as a school building. It can be configured as an open park, where our team members could have dialogue anywhere from a student in crisis to de-escalation of an angry parent in a lobby to, a full-on attack on a building. It was probably the most realistic training that most of us have been through with regards to schools. It came with great recommendations. I'm going to try and roll this out to our administrative teams in our 3 levels, so the high school, the 2 middle schools, and then the elementary. Obviously, it would require a trip on the road for a day, so we have to kind of work on that. But a lot of good feedback. Excuse me. As well, we got in 2 of our 3 hours of the Act 55 mandated training for the year. So we were exposed to threat assessment and trauma-informed educational protocols that day. The last one I wanted to mention to you that took place this summer took place in June. It was the Pennsylvania School Resource Officers Conference held in Harrisburg. So 5 of our team members were there. Keynote was provided by Commissioner Bethel of the Philadelphia Police Department. You may recall he was the head and chief of school safety for the Philadelphia school systems for a number of years before transitioning into being the police commissioner. So for some very insightful conversations with him. Our team actually got to meet him personally as we were from Montgomery County, and he felt like we were locals. So it was good to have a casual conversation with the commissioner and make that connectivity. You can see a list there. I'm not going to go through them all, but a number of excellent topics for us with regards to training over the 3 days that we attended. And also our school resource officer, Leo Vogel, was recognized at this particular conference as the School Resource Officer of the Year by the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers. So we were very proud of that and glad to have him in attendance to receive that recognition. So I'll take any questions, if there's any, on any of this training that I mentioned to you. If not, I'll just keep moving along here. I want to have a quick discussion with you about the current state of our camera system in the district. You know that over the summer we implemented a new program adding 29 cameras across the district, transition to the system called Genetec, away from our previous platform. Completed training for our staff and also brought the vape sensing devices into that system. One of the things that we were anticipating, we just didn't know where we were going to land, was what cameras on our system were going to be incompatible with the new Genetec system. So we've isolated 14 cameras needing replacement. They're non-working at the moment because of transition issues between these cameras, which, as I reviewed them, most of them are our most dated equipment that we have in the district. So there's a listing here: 4 at the high school, 6 at middle school east, 2 each at Skippack and Evergreen. The estimate to bring those over, which was CoStar's approved estimate, was $36,900. So that's a recommendation we'd like to make to this committee for approval, so we can complete this plan and replace these needed cameras. So I'll speak to any questions you might have on that.
Do you have a timeline for that?
Not sure, Mr. Fabrizio, if our vendor provided a timeline. He'll order as soon as we're in line, and I think it would be a fairly quick turnaround.
Within 2 weeks, I would imagine.
Okay. Does anyone have an issue with moving that forward for next month?
It's actually much lower than we anticipated, I must say. So 14 cameras out of the over nearly 180 across the district was a pretty good number, I thought.
Yeah, we should get a rolling on that, because
Yeah.
we don't need to keep holes in our
No,
system. And
correct.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean,
let's complete it and
yeah.
get the cameras done.
And
Yeah,
Jim?
we're adjusting, the ones we added, the 29 we added were in needed areas, and we're just adjusting them, tweaking their exposure. and working out some bugs in the plan with recording and data retrieval. So, work in progress, but this part is, important for us to move forward.
If it's okay with the committee, because these are replacements, we'll move forward, get them approved, it's on CoStars, and get them ordered.
Great, thank you,
We
Jim.
appreciate that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Just wanted to give you a bus patrol update for this month. So the 2 columns here, one on the left is our year-to-date total. The system generated 400 incidents. Out of those incidents, 216 citations were issued and 113 have so far been paid, bringing the collection to $30,900 again, which will go back into bus safety initiatives. The year-to-date from the reading of the fiscal year from July 1st to present, we've issued 61 citations. There are a number that are in the queue. So I just spoke to the people at Bus Patrol today. They're usually a 2-week delay because the process, if you remember, is they review those before they forward them to us to make sure they're legitimate. And then we make the final determination here at Perk Valley on whether or not the citation should be issued, depending on a number of circumstances such as the timing, location, things of that nature. So we'll probably see a higher number when we report back to you next month.
Can I ask, who's responsible for the follow-up associated with money collection?
So that falls under the finance department. I would let, well, Bus Patrol
Bus
does
Patrol
the
does
collection.
entire collection.
Okay,
And
and they
then-
take a percentage of it, and then the other,
Right,
the other-
and then it comes
okay.
to us, yeah.
okay. And so that money due, year to date, the 30,900, that's money that was associated with the value of
The fines
the
that were collected.
infractions.
Right.
But that's not the amount of money that would be due to the district.
No, because there's a split that goes with that.
I guess that's my question, is what the split is.
Yeah, and I think,
If you don't know offhand, that's fine.
I
just
don't
was
have it.
wondering
I
if
can
it's like
certainly
70,
forward it to
30
you.
or-
yeah, we usually get it at the end of the month, so I would imagine we'd get it in the next week
Don't
or.
forget the way the system works is that all the cameras and stuff that they put in the buses for no cost, that gets deducted from those totals before we get the split.
Yeah, I guess the reason that I'm asking, first of all, I think it's smart to have the burden of the follow-up. It's well worth the fee, whatever the fee is.
Right.
I just am wondering, in terms of like a revenue stream, what the percentage actually looks like of the total number. Maybe we can just have an update associated with that. It's almost irrelevant what it is. I'm just wondering what it is.
If it's okay with you, Laura, I can provide that in the FCTW or a weekend update if I get a hold of it
Yeah,
faster.
no, just out of curiosity, because the 30,000 looks really awesome, but it's not.
Right.
That's not true.
Correct. Thank you.
Did you have a question, Mr. Marshall? Okay.
So in regards to that 30,000, like, what happens if people just don't respond? Like,
So they become responsible for civil penalties through the court. So the violation it's a traffic violation, but it's not under the vehicle code per se. So it's a civil agreement, civil citation that goes to the court. If they don't satisfy it, it would follow the procedure that any other court proceeding would be. It would get forwarded to them in the form of a summons where they would have to appear to answer for it. And if they don't appear, then it would get turned over to a constable for collection and go through that. So we actually don't play any role in that, which is kind of nice, to be honest with you.
And it's roughly 50% actually get issued. Is that what I'm seeing? Am I understanding the way that the numbers are broken down accurately? 400 generated, 216 issued? Because you reviewed
Yeah,
them.
well, I think that number's kind of skewed because that includes everything from when we started up, and there's a lot of testing data in there. So they
Okay.
were just running the cameras for the sake of running them,
Okay.
and it's flagging violations which weren't.
Okay.
So, but I can't flush that out of the numbers that they send.
No, totally. I understand that. it would be interesting to see if there's progress over time.
Yeah, I think you'll see a better ratio,
Yeah.
more
okay.
in line with what you're seeing on the right side there.
On between July and
So
September.
76 generated, 61 citations
Okay,
issued.
so that percentage is a little bit
Yeah,
more
it's probably a
accurate.
lot closer to that.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on. So this next topic is, we've discussed this previously, we'd like to continue to move forward on this. creating another access point to the back of Middle School East. So we currently have a right-of-way there, which we have discussed in the past. We've had conversations with the township about what that might look like with regards to us actually utilizing it for that. And then there would be obviously hearings between us and the township, as well as some studies by the traffic firm, which, you know, we've used Gilmore in the past. They have data on other materials around the district, so that's the direction we would be going in. I don't have a cost estimate at this point, but this would be, if you're standing on the back of the building looking towards the Storybook Trail, it would be to the far left, up against the properties on Regents Drive, I think it is. So we have a right-of-way there of about 75 to 80 feet, I believe it is. And there's a setback we have to meet with regards to that. That was part of the deed, and that's the conversation we have to have with the township about what that's going to look like.
And this would be emergency access only, so it would have some sort of a chain.
Could
or
be
something
emergency
to it.
access, or we could utilize it simply for bus, you know, arrival and dismissal and nothing else.
And would you be looking to pave it, or would you have it be gravel?
I would like to see it paved to be a permanent, yeah.
So I normally, you don't have a map, Joe. Where's your map? He usually puts a map with like an arrow of where where it means. So I'm wondering if maybe with a map, we can see the cost associated with what that would
Right,
be. We've
and
been
we're-
talking about this for several years at this point, so,
Right. Just want to get that worked up in an official fashion that way, so.
okay.
And then the other,
Go ahead. You just need a mic. Yep.
I know we were talking about this 4 years ago, and I'm just curious why it hasn't moved forward to this point. Were there concerns about it, or what were the holdups on it?
Initially, I think we were talking about multiple locations for it. I think there were different scenarios of locations, if I remember correctly.
I
from
think,
the last time.
I think several years ago, we did move forward with it, and we ran into a little bit of pushback from the township because of the 75-foot setback, because the road itself, closer to the road, actually runs into people's property. So we would have to do a little bit of finagling there, and then I think it got a little bogged down in that conversation.
Was it resident pushback, or was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was, well, how badly do we need it, and what, all that kind of stuff, and I think it just stopped.
Right.
Conversation stopped.
so there's some encroachment there
Yes.
by neighboring property owners that has to be resolved. I mean, we did go out and clear it at one point. There's an old gate back there, but it's not open. So, but we'd like to continue to move this ahead. So the next step would be the conversation with the township and then with an engineering firm to try and get some idea of a ballpark on numbers with regards to where we could end up.
And I don't know, in understanding the roadblocks of there being an issue with traffic in that area, especially for the houses and the setbacks, that's why I asked if it was going to be an emergency-only access. To have buses go through there every day, twice a day, to me is a little bit more of an infringement than emergency services access, which really is the goal of having a separate entry point.
Right.
Based on our previous conversations, correct?
Yep.
So if the compromise is that has to be utilized only as emergency access, to me, that's a fair compromise.
Okay.
Because the buses are working as they are right now. So, I mean, a nice to have would be the bus. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, and we all know that Perkiomen Township, Cecile Daniel's been there a long time.
Yep.
For those of us that have been around, remember the pork chop discussion.
Yeah.
The pork chop discussion coming out of the parking lot, and she was ardent about how it was set up and processed, and the fact that we weren't following it. So in that particular case, Cecile's going to hold our feet to the fire and make sure that we do a traffic study. I mean, if we're going to utilize that for bus access, so it becomes a little bit more cost intensive to get buses to go out on that road.
Right. I just feel like that's not necessarily the most important objective to the access point.
One thing I would say about that is if you look where the access road would exit into Wortman, it's not an easy. Yeah, it's a very blind curve. Yeah, so I would not think we would want to encourage our buses to go there at all. Either direction, it would not be easy
Yeah,
access.
it certainly wouldn't be something where we would encourage buses to leave and go left.
At
At the most, it would be right in and right out.
Yeah.
So staying on one lane.
And perhaps if we were to keep it, obviously emergency access only, and maybe gravel might be the way to go on that as a cost-saving matter as well. This way that we're not encouraged to
Right.
use it for that. And the other thing is it borders and is essentially becomes the new border of the Arboretum. And I'm not so sure if we, paving that is the way to go. So perhaps if our intent is to limit it to emergency access, if our intent may become to make it just maybe improved gravel or something, one thing it would do is limit the scope then of any engineering processes that would need to go there, so perhaps we can lower the cost of that as well, because we're not looking at a paved road there, which once you put paving in, it's the pavement, it's the drainage, it's the runoff, and let's try to keep the scope of that as small, I think, as we can.
And actually, if we were to pave it, wouldn't that cause an issue for us with our permeability percentage?
Yep. Yeah, it would add to that as well.
So,
Yep.
okay, because I thought we were right at the edge of that, and that was part of our problem before. Okay.
Well, they do make ridiculously expensive.
All right, well, we'll take all that to the engineering firm and then to the township and have those conversations. The other one is a proposal as well for South, so the back end of South Elementary to connect the two parking lots across the back for very much the same reason. So there's really no way around South. It's always a dead end, regardless of which way you come in. It creates, obviously, we all know, problems on 113. So if we can tie that in, and that's a much shorter span with probably an easier build, if you will, to do much the same thing, to give them access around the back. So we'll report back on that. I just wanted to keep you abreast of some of the conversations we're having.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Okay, seeing none, moving on to Mr. Fabrizio in operations.
Just back to that fire lane thing real quick, or not access road. I've done fire lanes on other projects before where they use an HDPE, like a high density plastic. It's like a grid that's open, and then you infill it with either dirt or some kind of cinders, and then you can either let grass grow on it so it looks natural, but it can support like the weight of a fire truck. So it's one. Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about your permeable and impermeable numbers. Middle school east bathroom project. Partition replacements. These things are nasty. They're rotting out. They're 25 years old. They're hit with urine, cleaning chemicals. I mean, they're rotting out, and we need a full building replacement. I've had several contractors out. I do have a quote for $74,750 for the entire building, partitions and all, replaced with high density plastic and stainless steel. They're installing. They are on CoStars, again, $74,750.
Is that this, we've been talking about this before, is that on the radar of any?
Yes, so
Okay.
Mr. DeAngelo reached out. It's hot on his list.
Yep.
What's that? So yes, it's a priority for that building.
It is also listed on our capital projects.
was the
It's
question.
been there for quite a while, so
Right, it's a
yes.
placeholder, but,
Yes.
okay. So are you looking to move this forward in October, or are you looking, now that you have a quote?
I want to move everything forward. That's up to Mr. Weaver.
Well,
So-
I just want to get October's priorities in
Yeah,
order.
the recommendation would be to move forward for school board approval in October and get
Okay,
this
and is
moving
there a
through capital
duration?
project.
I'll reach out to the vendor to get a timeline once it's
Okay.
approved.
So the timeline's pending, but you're looking for October approval. Does anybody on the committee have an issue with that?
Thank you.
And more fun at East. We have several doors. This is one of the doors. It's no longer latching correctly. We've temporarily secured it, so it is functioning, but I have a quick video if you want to play it. You should hit play. Credit to Chief Miller for the video. I have to redeem my maps. It's been secured. Yes. Yes, please. So just to put this into context, we just finished replacing the auditorium bank of doors, as well as the bus loop entry doors, and it's like night and day. They don't have the D handles anymore, so you can't chain them. They're all recessed cup handles. They function, as they should. These are 25 years old, so they're pretty much worn beyond repair.
Mr. Fabrizio, recommend?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, we recommend to move forward with this, and door partitions and door replacements are part of capital projects as well.
Okay, so and then the lights, the cameras.
Next slide, please. We're moving on to South Elementary. We've been having a constant issue. There's an underground stream of some sort and hydrostatic pressure coming out of the ground. We did a quick fix a week or so ago. Sachs came in and helped me out and put a quick patch in, but it's going to blow out again because of the water. So what we have to do is we have to cut that blacktop and put a piping in there to relieve that pressure and funnel it away to keep the blacktop from popping up. CoStar's quote were around $40,000 for that, and they'll bring the paving back to where it's like 50 feet in. So
since we're going to be paving there, can you then expedite this back access area to maybe
So
tie them in?
that all has to go through, is it Gilmore? It all has to be engineered and
The
approved.
back part?
Yeah, it's dirt right now.
It's just a yard right now.
Oh, so it's more involved than
involved.
just, okay, got it.
There's a
It's not like
5-foot
repaving
drain pipe that
a
goes
parking
under.
lot or something like that.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
All right.
It doesn't exist. And to Bob Liggett's point, there's under drainage that has to go in there and all that kind of stuff. It's got to be a foundation of stone and all that kind of stuff, so it has to
Okay.
be engineered.
Understood.
So we can wait and see how long the patch lasts and push this off to the summer, and maybe tie it into the work out back if that's going to progress, kind of, group it together.
I guess it depends on how disruptive it's really going to be. This digging up a drain, there's no other entry. This seems pretty,
Yeah, this is like a summer project. It's patched now,
yeah,
so it's going to hold for a couple months, but it will blow apart again.
right.
So-
And then going into the winter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd probably wait to the summer to do this because
Yeah, it's the access point for the
Yeah.
campus there.
Yeah.
So,
You're looking at like essentially putting a huge French drain in there, I
Yeah.
guess, and
Yeah,
doing
pretty
our
much.
drainage.
with
Yeah.
a grate on top, I'm like imagining I don't know if it's going to look like that.
it's
or
all
not.
underground piping.
Oh, underground,
Yeah.
okay. So if that's the case, then it could technically be tied in to the other portion of the back.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay,
I'm okay waiting. I just wanted to get this on your radar because
Yeah.
it will have to be done at some point.
okay. So then, the only thing that we're missing then is that the back parking lot tied together cost. So in maybe a future meeting, we could have
Yeah, I can work with Dean on that, and
both of them, like A and a B, or,
yeah.
yeah. If we're going to do it over the summer, then. Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Next slide, please. Shed plan update. So this is outdated. We now have all the units on campus. So we took delivery of the last 4 units today. The football sheds, I noticed, that's the bottom right picture. Coach is utilizing them now. Yep, the doors were rolled up and there was equipment in there. So we do have solar lights that are going to go inside of these football shed units to get him some light in there if need be. They do secure with padlocks, and there is video surveillance on them. So I know that was one of his requests as well.
Is a solar light different than is it just a skylight
No, it's a 4-foot
or?
LED tube with a
Okay.
solar charger.
Gotcha.
And they're
That's
motion
what I want to make
activated.
sure, because.
We just put some in the ticket booth, so
Well, I mean, it could be a very fancy word for a window in the roof.
it's not a solar tube.
When it's dark outside, a window in the roof's not going to give you.
You don't. He didn't say what time.
So I have those. We're just waiting to carve out some time to get them installed. So, yeah. We did put solar lights in the ticket booths if you want to take a look. So they're motion activated and they're bright. Wear your sunglasses. Next on our list, high school capital discussion. So we did a walkabout several months ago with a couple board members and Dr. Fuller, just to kind of put boots on the ground and come up with some ideas on how we can improve things and projects that need to be tackled. So first on the list, we have a ramp replacement that's out back by the girls' varsity softball field. Currently, it's a wooden ramp that we use to get mowers up there, trainers, golf carts. It's also if emergency vehicles have to get up there. So we're looking to install something that's a little more substantial. So I have a quote, CoStar's quote, for $5,200 to make that a concrete apron. They'll saw cut the blacktop and form a ramp, pour it, and be done with it. So any feedback on that?
So more generally, I have a question about our capital projects budget and what we have in our capital projects. We have our dedicated capital projects that are for the bond funding, but then we also have our additional, which have to be spent on the ESCO projects and of those nature. And then we have our other capital projects fund. And I'm curious, what is the amount that's currently in those funds?
So we don't have those figures yet. We're going through final audit processes with our local auditor. But we will have them shortly, and that will be part of the capital projects presentation when we get there in October. The goal is to get those monies and available for discussion purposes here in Safety and Operations Committee, and then followed up in November for the total capital projects presentation.
How much was remaining at the time of final budget approval in June?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
And so I guess my question is, all of these things seem very nice, but following from the last board meeting's discussion about whether or not we're going to need to be taking exceptions from, looking at whether or not we're on track to be under index, and knowing that it looks from what I've been able to determine that our reserve funds are lower than they've been in previous years, and our typical budgeting process is that anything that's over 8% gets moved over into the capital projects budget. If we don't know that we're having money coming over into the capital projects budget from our unassigned fund balance, it makes me wonder if having uniform trash cans needs to be the priority. And I'm just throwing that out there as food for thought that, the last a couple weeks ago, the budget discussion was very prominent during the board meeting, and that there's concern for that. And so just not having a sense of how much money is available for spending and whether or not the regular replenishment that the board has been able to do over the past several years is going to be continuing is something that I think we should be having in the back of our minds as we're looking at some of these items. Just some food for thought.
I think that's a very fair assessment, Mrs. Lofton. I would agree with that. Just unfortunately, we just don't have the numbers to share. So rather than share something and have a major audit journal entry that changed the balance, either way, it could go either way with some of these changes when we get audited. I'd just rather hold off and then in October come back when we have the numbers that I feel a little bit better about.
So one of the things I think that is important in having the discussions about wish list items and then the costs associated with them is that for a lot of years, in my tenure at least, we talked about the things we'd like to do, and there wasn't really any type of a timeline in place or a cost associated with it. So it was just a lot of discussion without any movement. And so in being able to have a list that you're able to prioritize and then put money against, I think it helps the overall planning. So some of the costs and the output for things that we've talked about for October approvals so far are things that are wrap-up projects or true maintenance items that are necessary for the appropriate and safe operation of the buildings. You know, the cameras, the doors, you know, and then some of the other items, I think with regards to the high school, some deferred nice to haves is one thing, but it still should be on the radar with earmarking money to go towards them. You know, so that, you know, it's a little bit low-hanging fruit with regards to the trash cans. However, it's not really about the trash cans. It's about developing a vision and in my view, it's about developing a vision and a wish list for the things that we would like to have as a community and for our high school. So, you know, I know everything adds up. You know, it's piecemeal here and there, but, you know, security cameras, those things, you know, there's some things that in years past and boards past, deferred maintenance is what brought all of these things for us to have to deal with. And I know you know that. So it's just a matter of, I think, a balance of both of those items, in my view. That's my 2 cents on that.
If I can follow up, I have a question about that because, as you noted, when I first came onto the board 8 years ago, there had been extensive deferred maintenance to the point that it was much more expensive to put in new things rather than because things had not been maintained. But I am curious because one of the first things we did was put together a 10-year capital projects plan, and I don't know exactly what we called it, but we had hired an outside firm to come in and assess everything and put together a plan for us for how do we get ourselves back to where the district should be as far as having an active maintenance schedule and replacing things in a reasonable and logical order, recognizing that emergencies are going to come up and things are going to need to get adjusted and shifted. So I recognize we're coming to the tail end of that plan, but does such a 10-year plan exist, and are these just pieces that are coming up from that type of a plan, or kind of where does that stand?
So, Jim, I mean, and this is my impression of it, just because I've been kind of following the bouncing ball the whole way, Jude, after, is that there were some things that changed, shifted, fell off, maybe didn't become a priority because we pivoted to a different direction. But then at the same time, we've, like, for example, the fleet. You'll give your update on that. That type of thing, uniforms, all of those different items that were part of those plans. You could go down the list and you can tell us what you've done and what you haven't done, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. And Mrs. Lofton is correct. We started with that process from the outside firm. We actually had discussion about this in April and May, whether or not we were going to get it out and redo it or not. We still think there's some meat on the bones from that presentation, and every capital project presentation, we update that original list. And so we bring that forward and the board sees everything cut out for each building. Line items, all of those line items tie directly back into the original capital projects update provided by AEM back in 2018, plus additions either through Mr. Clemmer or through Mr. Fabrizio that we've added. And I have a big J Fab or a S Clem double X or whatever, to identify where those things came about from the different things. So hopefully that addresses what you're thinking. Yes. That
Yes,
whole,
perfect, exactly that. And I just haven't followed some of these things that closely, and I'm trying to reacquaint myself with all the moving parts.
So this meeting is my favorite meeting, and you've heard me say that before. So when Mr. Fabrizio came on, and one of the reasons that I was not in favor of doing another capital project study and paying for it is because now we have Mr. Fabrizio, and we didn't before. And so the benefit of that is that there can actually be ongoing eyes dedicated to making sure that we stay on top and keep the momentum going. With regards to the high school capital discussion, last year was the end of Dr. Fuller's first year here at the high school. So it was at the end of last year that I had asked that we do a facilities walk. And I would like to do that with every building, with the stakeholders, meaning, building administration and Mr. Fabrizio, Mr. Weaver, to have these types of, to-do lists. Some things are wish items, some things are maintenance items. So that way we're not just being reactive all the time with regards to X, Y, Z. And that was, it really was
Perfect.
a very passionate
Yes.
motivation of mine. So this building, and I believe we also did a facilities walk at West prior to the high school. I think we probably should circle it back around about
The ad-
that. There
the
were some
admin
flooring
building, of course,
issues.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the administration
Yeah.
building is a whole separate fiasco
And
situation.
so you're maintaining, here's what needs to get done this year, here's what we're doing over 5 years, here's what we project over 10 years, there's a budget associated with that, and so all of this is designed to fit within that budgeted, planned amount to ensure that the district is being effectively maintained.
Or budget development.
Right, okay.
That's right. So, and then South obviously just had a huge overhaul, right? So now they're good for a little bit, but then you can't just let them flounder, because eventually then they won't be good, right? So
Right, okay.
Evergreen just got a new playground, so like that was check.
So these items here we're not discussing for the sort of emergent things that you mentioned are for approval in October, but these are sort of going in line with the budget development through the year.
I would ask for priority and take a look at the whole picture of it.
Okay.
For example, this wooden ramp, I don't know if you've noticed, it's literally a piece of plywood to a curb. So for use of the golf carts and stuff, I mean, $5,200, I would say, well, how are we going to pay for that? And if there's a spot to pay for it, then I would say that's a small one, for example. To me, the trash can thing is maybe a phased plan over a duration of time. I mean, we're going to go down the list, but the electric sign, that's a tough one because you want a nice one, right? So then maybe class officers from each grade we could have some sort of a fundraising thing. I think we could be creative about funding that and maybe doing a match of some variety.
yeah. And I think the other thing is
This is
I
the
know-
first we're seeing of the results from the walk.
I do know that our philosophy in general is to match long-term money with long-term longevity.
Right.
And that's part of the process from priority perspective. To Ms. White's point about $5,200 for a wooden ramp, Joe and I can talk about that. I would think that that's not going to be a capital project. We're not going to use capital project monies for that. So I would turn to Joe and I would say, okay, high school repairs and maintenance budget, what have we spent? What have we not spent? That's part of that priority perspective. And so I think those are some of the things that we can move forward with. We oftentimes have those conversations. Electric sign, I happen to have some history with that. The biggest one about that is the township. The township limits the sizes of our signs. We didn't think so back in 2010 when we actually did one. And we actually had them come out and limit the number of pixels we had. Now, technology has moved beyond that at this point in time, but I am sure that they still have caveats in there about the sizes of signs along Route 29. So those are types of the things that you're thinking, oh, Jimmy, just go ahead and get it out and just rip the brick out and put a new brick in. We'd love to. But unfortunately, there's going to be some engineering and there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that we have to go to the township and have to sit in some of those things, perhaps ask for a waiver, which means legal stuff. So those are types of the things as we talk about, we discover the additional components that go towards that. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the electronic sign is controlled by a single computer, and that computer lives in my office. And that computer cannot run the latest version of Windows because the sign will not work if we have the newest software on our computers to run it because it's that old.
Windows ME.
When you press publish, you have to drive down to Gravel Pike and make sure that what you wanted on the sign is actually what the sign is displaying. And right now, I'm the only person with that password, so if you see me sitting in my Jeep on Gravel Pike, that's why. So
Pick your words
if you see me
carefully,
sitting
because
on
you
the
might not be able to
on
get
the
'em all.
shoulder of Gravel Pike in my Jeep, that's why. So it's a bit of a disaster. It's very old, and it's starting to fail. So that's why the sign is on here. With regard to the trash cans, I'll only say I hope that $1,075 buys us a trash can that is not flimsy. Because
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
But I think that, there's different prices for trash cans. They're in a trash can book in that area.
That was on Uline. So.
Yeah, right. You just chose one and plopped in a number for a budget item. But I think so coordination of like the quantity of trash cans, where we would like them, maybe where we don't have them. Those things are second level trash can conversations, but this puts a pin in it, so it's on the yeah, it's a tier two conversation, right? But I mean, you could spend $5,000 on a trash can. You really could find nice ones, but I think that's a conservative budget
Or
number.
Simple Human makes a $5,000.
Right. Or the stone ones. The stone ones are nice. Okay. So anyway, so of these items, we have the window seals, which I know we talked about. They're the ones on the exterior, the big, tall, huge ones. If we could see the trash can and the window seal in a phased plan and all clear that there's money for those. It wasn't that many windows. What was it, like 4? Was it a lot? It's the
There's 20-something windows.
with the broken seals.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm thinking of the ones on that back side.
So you can see what that
Oh
Um,
yeah, right here. Right.
is. Just some samples. Those are not. There are many more windows.
Yeah, right.
I'm curious also, just adding to the list, it might be interesting to see whether the intent is for it to be paid out of a building's repairs and maintenance versus whether the intent is to have a, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they look terrible.
Yeah.
Still look terrible.
So, no matter how, try to move it through. Judy's got questions, Ryan, so this is weird. Okay, so the only thing that you're going to go forward with in terms of recommendation on this slide would be for October. Are you looking to do the ramp? This is the list for right now. Is there a request for October on this slide?
So the ramp is important
Yeah,
because the ramp provides emergency access to the back fields.
right.
So it's not just convenience for hauling water out there or getting the mower up there. It's also if we have an injured player on the softball field or those back fields, we're bringing them down to the building via that ramp. So I want to make sure that that's also out there. That was expressed to me today by one of our staff members, and I forget which one, but I didn't think of it in that way. But it is important for emergency access to those fields.
Yeah, I think the ramp should get fast-tracked as much as possible, Joe. Especially because for the cost of that, one thing that goes wrong with that and the liability of that, we're paying a lot more than what that bill is. I think we should cross that off our list by completing it.
Okay. Now, the other components to these don't go away, as Ms. White said. These just continue to roll about, and we'll continue to have conversation about them. The other good thing about keeping these conversations going is if we have an opportunity for another ESCO program, then some of these other things can get lumped into that process as just as part of the ESCO. And Phil said it real quick. That plan that we did this summer would look completely different given all the obstacles that we had and the issues that happened if that was a regularly bid project. Change orders, issues, ESCO, one price, they all took care of it, and no additional fees. So that's the beauty of the ESCO. Again, as we work out perhaps another ESCO, and we're going to have a meeting in a couple of days here just to see where we're at, remember how that works. That's either older equipment that we can put new ones in to be more efficient, or capital avoidance. We know something is going to fail in 10 more years. We can replace it now. There's a tangible value to that goes into the ESCO program that then generates quote unquote savings that then we can address other projects within that ESCO program. So again, these don't go away now. They just sit there and we have additional discussions. I can tell you we have additional work on the electronic sign. Dr. Fuller, I'm sorry. We'll have to go over to the township and see what the requirements are. They may have changed. I don't know. And of course, the window seals, we're getting a bunch of those at West completed as part of this ESCO project. So that might be something to think about as well. Okay.
All right, so these are definitely not October items that I'm about to mention, right? When I first got here, I was asked to think about what would the long-term vision be for the first floor of the high school. We had begun that with a discussion of the vestibule out front, because we do not have a sort of a locking vestibule in the way that we think about that with a security guard inside of it. And so we were thinking about security-wise, how do we create a vestibule that allows the facility to be a little bit more secure and doesn't require parents to like sort of scan their license in a computer and sort of this impersonal experience as they're coming in, having them talk with a person inside the vestibule. And so we started with a discussion of what would it take to bring the vestibule out to the columns on the outside of the building, right? And so bring the interior space out to the columns so that we could put a vestibule there and bring people in to be met by a security guard there. But while we were having that discussion, we started to think about what else is going on the first floor of this building. And as a person who just came here a year and change ago, I had just left a $42 million capital project right after the planning phase. It's actually being built right now. And so I know better than to go through all the details of what I would do to design this now, because that's part of the design process that engineering firms will take you through. But in terms of vision, I can tell you a few things about what I'd like to see happen if we were to do a larger scale capital project here at the high school. I'd like to think about the vestibule, and I'd like to think about the way space is used from essentially this wall that's behind everybody here, all the way over to the wall on the other side of the main office where the athletic office is right now. And so I'd like to rethink that space if I were to have my druthers. There's a lot of unused space, and there's a lot of very circuitous hallways, circuitous space, like it's a sort of a rabbit warren back there. So I would want to open up the space to students, try to return as much of the space to our students as we could. I think there's like a lot of administrative space that we don't need, and then reorganize the space that we have to meet our current needs. Right now, we don't have enough offices to support the number of programs that we have here. We just put another personnel member in a conference room upstairs, and so we're sort of losing meeting space to facilitate programming as we sort of build out the programming at the high school. So I'd want to think about sort of flexible spaces within the office so that we would have meeting rooms that could be converted into spaces for our practitioners that come to us from outside the building, or for service providers that that are only here on certain days of the week. So I'd like to think about flexible spaces, building enough offices and meeting spaces, and doing that in a way that opens the space up for student use and invites people in. I think our counseling office does a really nice job of that. That's a newer part of the building, but I don't think that the older administrative spaces do that very well. And there's a lot of really kind of amorphous space back by where the athletic office and the mailboxes are, if you know where that is. I'd like to think about flipping the athletic office around to be more student-facing. We don't see a lot of students accessing our athletic office, and that's not something I see in a lot of high schools that I visit or places that I've worked. You know, that's usually pretty much a hotbed of activity for students. Right now, it's sort of behind two doors, and one of them says no students allowed. So students have to, like, if they want to find their way back there, they're doing that. They're having to navigate their way to that office. I'd almost like to flip it around so it's facing the comp gym lobby hallway across from the aux gym, so that students can access that space directly from the hallway. I'd like to think about this library. Most high school libraries that are being built now are not cavernous. They are smaller. The physical collection's condensed a little bit and curated a little bit. Not that Karen doesn't do a great job of curating our collection, but it's very large. What's that? Right, and so like bringing this space, making the space a little smaller, making it a little bit more flexible, doing away with nooks and crannies like the one you see behind you, which is, as far as I can tell, purposeless over there. And then finding a place that, for these meetings that we're sitting in now, board meetings, because when we set up for board meetings now, or for these meetings, that cuts into the last few periods of our day. And so the library becomes unavailable to our students when that happens. So I'd like to think about what does a separation look like, and what other purposes could a board meeting space have for our students for the rest of the time that they occupy the building, right? Thinking like a sort of like in my own child's school, there's like a large group instruction room that is also the boardroom, right? There is a sort of a state-of-the-art presentation space that is also the boardroom. So how can we carve out a space that is a modern presentation space for our students and is also beneficial to the board? So that's sort of the vision that I'm thinking about, right? If given the opportunity to engage in a capital project, I'd look at a library, a boardroom, a locking vestibule, repurposing of the main office space to accommodate all the programming we have, and then a forward facing of the athletic office towards students. And that would be sort of everything on this side of the rotunda, except the counseling office I'm pretty happy with, the way that it's laid out. So if there are questions about the vision, I'll take those now. I do not have a blueprint for you. I do not have a cost estimate. I have not secured an architect, right? I don't, that's a joke. That's the vision. So, questions about that?
Thank you, Dr. Fuller. So I guess my question or my request would be how you would like to, now that this was done, the list is made and it's being presented for conversation as first look, what would you recommend the next steps be from a facilities standpoint?
I would form groups, gather their input to see what other people would like to see as well. Once you have consensus and clear vision, then engage with an architect at that point. We don't want the architect spinning their wheels, but this person says, oh, no, I want that, and this, oh, I want this, and
Right.
you need to have a plan before you go out. So
I'm sorry, Dr. Fuller, do you want to?
Well, I would say only that the last time I did this, which was only 2 years ago, one of the things that the architectural firm did was meet with us as an administrative team to find out what the non-negotiables were, and then they engaged in the conversations about space with the people, and it was really helpful for us, I thought, to have guidance from them about what was possible relative to what was being said by the stakeholders.
So that's, I think, my biggest feedback as well, is that in projects like this, whether it be for a corporation or for higher education or certainly for public school, without guidance from folks that actually do this day in and day out, you don't really know what is possible and then the cost associated with that. So similar to, it's not really at all the same, but in the similar way that we have a third party handle the bus patrol situation, there is value in developing a relationship with someone that can help guide and collect data for us with costs associated for these things. It would take some of the lift off of you. And sometimes that's for, I know that we had done and paid, it was like a cash and turnover for the rotunda and vestibule area. I don't know that that was really ultimately of any value to us. It was drawings sort of without a purpose. And I guess my ask would be that as a plan is developed, that it's actually developed with action items and a timeline in mind.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. I would, however, say that there is a certain cost estimate to that at some point in time it becomes not possible without a bond issue and
For the ultimate
Taj
amount
Mahal
of
Act and
for
all
the
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
for the ultimate amount of work, 100%. But if you're talking about developing, a 5 or 10-year plan, then I think that you would. I think that we need to approach someone with that knowledge so they could help map it out. But I will say the longer that time goes on, things don't get cheaper over time. So at a certain point, I think as a district, we need to decide what we're going to, spend money on. The last renovation to the high school was 2004. I don't know what year it was. Right. It was a major.
4 to 6.
No, that's my point. But I mean, to the high school building itself, that was the last, and that was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. So at a certain point, it has that same, it's the same theme of deferred, maintenance is status quo is one thing, but for example, in 2 years, could something be done to the library? In 18 months, could something be done to the library? We've been talking about demountable walls and things like that for the last 3 years. So there are things that can be done incrementally for a long-term big picture, I guess is my, we don't need to tear the building down and build a new one, certainly, but there's, I think, things that can be done within a space that are non-structurally significant. Whereas the vestibule, like that would be a structurally significant investment. But even, what Dr. Fuller mentioned about the athletic office, I don't even know that would really be that significant of a renovation, because it would really just be like a new entry and a closed. Some things can be balanced with the resources that we use day to day for maintenance. I'm
Until
assuming.
you touch the fire system.
Until they touch the fire system. But I guess that's, I don't want to just sit and have conversations about the dreams that we have about it if we're never going to put money and dates to it.
Again, I don't disagree with anything you said. The previous group that we had in here, GKO, we paid them, I think it was $7,000. They came in. It was one of the first days Dr. Fuller was here. We had some final discussions, and then they sent some drawings. And then we looked at those drawings and we said, well, that's not really what we meant. So that gets to we skipped that process and ended up with going this direction. And then when we got the prints, we kind of said, Dr. Russell, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we looked at that and said, well, that's not kind of what we thought it would look like. So I don't know if you don't necessarily have to add anything to that, but that was my impression, was that we spent money, they came in, they listened to us, and then they unfurled something that we looked at it and we said, thank you, and then that's not what we meant.
Well, it just, we were looking for some ideas and possibilities, having described or had an introductory conversation similar to the one that's being held tonight, and we didn't feel like the architect at the time hit the nail on the head. It just didn't resonate for us. So, back to a drawing board, so to speak, if that's a possibility. Yeah, I would agree, Jim.
So the other things on this slide, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, please. If it's about this. Sorry. Yes. So the next bullet is to consider auditorium, performing arts space, and plan accordingly for renovation, sound, and rehearsal space. We need to decide what we want that to be. That's really my message here. I think that there are possibilities within the auditorium to help with some of the space restrictions that we have, especially in the wintertime when we're dealing with indoor percussion and performing arts groups. But we need a bigger stage in order to make that happen, because those competitions take place in a gym, and they're really just not large enough. The space on the stage is really just not large enough to rehearse that group. So I think that we could, think about expanding the size of the auditorium stage area and the rehearsal spaces behind the stage area, and then incorporate a large enough space to contain those groups that we have that rehearse and are constantly competing for the gym, which is where the basketball nets are. So that's part of it. And then the other part, I think, is more, this is part of that deferred maintenance issue. It's in those rooms, in the band room in particular, it's looking old and sad, and it needs a little help. So if we could look at the floor in there, that would be helpful. If we remove the carpet, we should think about acoustics. That's what those two items are.
So my question was about the auditorium and sort of how that fits in with the overall use of space throughout this region. So it's my understanding that about 40 years ago, when the auditorium was built, it was initially designed to extend further, and then they said, you know what, we want to save some money, and they kind of cut the length of the auditorium in half. And if you ever go up on the catwalk, you can see where the design basically got truncated. And so, the problem with that is, as I'm sure you're aware, that we don't have a large enough location within this building to accommodate like the spring musical. And so that has to be held at East, and then all the challenges that presents for the building and the students. And so, in your vision or plan, is there an opportunity, I know that, essentially some components of the high school auditorium have gotten a facelift, like the new seating and new pieces of that, but fundamentally the shape of the room does not serve the building. Right. And so is your vision looking to do something to address that?
I have two answers to that question. The first answer I have is, we do have two full-sized auditoriums within the district, auditoria within the district, right? So those are available to us, but the project I just built was a $42 million auditorium that was within walking distance of an 800-seat auditorium at our high school. I do believe in the high school being the flagship of the district. I do think that we should have the facilities here to accommodate our students. And if you're asking me about vision that is unmoored from, considerations of budget, I would love to push the auditorium that way, right? Expand that space, and then think about where do we put adjacent rehearsal spaces, right? I would love for that to be a part of the project. That might be, that is up to the higher powers. But if you're asking my opinion, I think the auditorium could really use some help. And also, I think that the spaces in the balcony of the auditorium are unusable, right? Because the railings are too low and the sight lines are too steep. And so if you were to sit there to try to watch a play, the railing would be in the way and you wouldn't be able to see it, right? So now we have these giant unused spaces in the balcony of the auditorium, and we've got to think about what, if anything, to do with those spaces. There's been thought about making that into spaces for technology, spaces for robotics. Right now we're hosting, like, our lunch detention is happening up there. We're using it for everything that we can use it for, but it doesn't seem purposeful.
So Judy, we had talked about on the walk whether or not that could be converted to like an e-gaming sort of space, you know, because it is tiered and, you know, it could be renovated in that fashion, just in a creative way. There's not really a lot that you can do. Well, you've been in there, so you know what it looks like. So that was one of the conversations we had. Joe had at one point taken a look at leveling it, correct? Didn't you? I don't.
So I talked to the township. I brought John Moran out and we walked the space just to see if we could level out certain sections of platforms to make it more usable. And that just got involved quickly. Weight-wise, because that's cantilevered, we have to have a structural engineer come out to see what we can do. So, I mean, anything's possible. I mean, we just have to get a plan to do it.
And so isn't part of the reason why it's unusable and the sight lines are wrong is because it was initially designed that the stage would be much further back. So if you actually put the stage much further back, then it becomes usable. So a decision would probably need to be made about whether the goal is to actually enhance and expand the stage.
But in the interim.
Right, but I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to see a lot of money being sunk into renovating something that like if you changed the angle of it and then you blew out the back of the wall and made everything sized the way it was initially intended, then that
Becomes moot.
then you need to then you need to flip
Undo
it back. Yeah.
This white wall is not structural, as we saw. Is that an opportunity for a short-term solution to the space constraint on the stage?
That's our backstage behind that. So once you open that, you're going to see everything backstage. So all
Right.
your storage is going to go away.
I mean, it's only like 6 or 8 feet, right?
Yeah,
I don't,
it's not- it's
you
like
know,
a
we don't
hallway.
host plays here, right? So it would really literally be for ensemble uses. And I guess you would have to have, the question would have to be asked as to whether or not removing the wall would be worth the benefit of losing the space. And I guess based on conversations that I've kind of anecdotally had, the answer would be yes.
Yeah, what do we get from
Yeah.
moving that wall?
Right. And is the benefit greater than having the 8 feet behind it?
Right.
And what would be involved in removing the wall? I mean,
A lot of
you've got a
manual labor.
sledgehammer, right? Okay.
Jackhammers.
Jim gets real angry. You could probably get him to do it.
Well,
All right.
Wait, the fall play is held there, right?
Yeah, the fall
The
play.
play is, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you could,
Last year,
Oh, okay.
there's been some thought about holding it there this year.
okay. But it could be, I mean, you could curtain it. That wall is, I
Oh,
think
yes,
that there's
okay.
solutions, I guess, is my point, because I think that the benefit that the ensembles would gain, if we're looking to grow programming, would be substantial. It was a very, very tight special groups concert last year. Like, almost like they couldn't really move.
And the last bullet on this slide, and I have 3 more slides, is to refresh the rotunda and auditorium area bathrooms in the same way that we're talking about for the middle school.
And
flooring, too. And flooring.
So I did reach out to a contractor that will pour like a continuous flooring, like almost like an epoxy, but it's not. It's a different material with the sanitary code base, so we can power wash it or Kievac it and kind of get that.
What was the response?
I have a meeting coming up with him. Yeah.
So I put some pictures here to help us. So right now, I took pictures of the 9 different kinds of flooring on the second floor and the 5 different colors of lockers that we have in a very short space. What's that? 9? Yes. So one thing that is efficiency. Yeah. One thing that we've been working on or had been working on last year is removal of the high school lockers. For those of you who don't know, our students do not use their lockers at the high school. We offer them lockers every year. We give them the chance to request a locker. Last year we had 12 kids request a locker. This year we've had 8 kids request a locker. And so the space that the lockers occupy is actually becoming more valuable than the lockers themselves. We did remove a ton of them last year. I would like to continue removing them. However, that presents a problem because we don't know what's underneath of them. And you know that we had an issue in that hallway that you can see on the left-hand side. When we removed the lockers, there was some flooring coming up. We discovered some asbestos underneath, and that had to be abated this summer. Just to give you a comparison, you can see what the hallway looks like now on the left-hand side with its contiguous single-colored floor, and its removed lockers, and that's the narrowest hallway upstairs that we have. So I'd be looking to, I don't want to abandon our project of removing the lockers. I think that the space that it's created has been beneficial to our kids. And if we're going to remove the lockers, then I think it's probably worth talking about replacing the floor.
Yep.
I like that floor,
The new one.
the new one. I like that floor a lot. Yeah.
It's a terrazzo lookalike.
It's a terrazzo lookalike. And comes in great big tiles, so you can't see the seams. It's really snazzy. I like it a lot. And then, so that's the first 2 bullets on this slide. The third bullet is furniture replacement and room updates as necessary. Furniture replacement, I'm replacing currently three classrooms a year. I'm trying to replace 3 classrooms a year with flexible furniture. We did that again this year. Flexible furniture for 3 classrooms is about $21,000. It is used. We have been replacing it with a purpose, so we've been talking to our teachers about how they would use that flexible furniture, and then based on what they tell us, we've been purchasing it and replacing it. The furniture is dated, it is old, and it is not designed for collaborative work. It is not designed for student-centered instruction. It's desks attached to chairs like you remember from high school for the most part, and they're difficult to even partner up, let alone put in a group of 4 or create a table or any sort of collaborative work. So at the rate I'm going, I'll be retired before I replace all of the classrooms at the high school. So anything that we can do in this year or future years to expedite that process, I would appreciate, because at this rate, I'll be thinking about replacing the furniture I just bought before I retire and before all the rooms have been turned over. So that's why the furniture bullet is here.
So I do have some cost figures associated with some of these projects. For the lockers, we'll start there. The abatement's around 40,000 square feet. We know what's up there. It's in the glue. It's not in the tile. We're looking north of $1 million just for the abatement. It has to be mechanical abatement, which means they remove the tile, they encapsulate the ceiling, the walls and everything, they pressurize it, put scrubbers in to keep all the bad stuff contained. And then they'll come in with big grinders and grind the glue off the floor and abate the area. So that's around $1 million. Then we have to put the new flooring back down. So you're anywhere from $500,000 on up to put this flooring back down. The other heavy lift is moving all the furniture out of the rooms and all the items before the abatement. So that would be a PV. That would be a heavy lift for us to do that, but I mean it's doable. We just need the manpower to make that move. And then as far as the furniture replacement, I don't have figures, but I do have a request that any furniture that is going to be replaced, we have a plan to either dispose of or reallocate the furniture because, as you know, we're bursting at the seams. We order furniture and then, okay, take the other furniture away. Well, where do you want me to put it? I can't keep shoving it in like air handler rooms and things like that. So there has to be something in place for that.
So what we have been doing, we need desks for
Testing.
And so my understanding is that we had been borrowing those desks from other buildings. So when we did this last replacement last year of the furniture, we stored those desks because we thought it would be easier than carting testing desks from other buildings to our building. We stored them in the air handler room or the what used to be the post-prom closet or whatever, wherever those desks are currently housed, for that purpose. I don't know how many more we need. I'm told we need about 195 desks. So I think probably this year we could probably store those desks also, if we can find a place to stash them.
You can fit like 40 in there maybe. We could call Rental World. Maybe they have some. All right, we're digressing.
I think we're getting a little punch drunk. All right, let's move along.
We are considering flexible seating areas. This came out of the conversation that we had on our board walkthrough and some projects that came to us from our students. I believe that I will have the money in my in and out account to manage one of those student projects to refurbish what was called the senior lounge with some flexible furniture. This becomes particularly important as we open up flexible time in our school day for our students to be here and get work done. I just saw during Viking Zone today, I made it out of the lobby and saw students at the high top. So the senior lounge and the lounge next door were packed with students working collaboratively at high top tables. And so I'd like to give them some comfortable seating. We've been basically thinking about where do students congregate and then thinking about how can we put comfortable furniture in those areas rather than try to force them to an area where we want to put furniture. So that's what we've been doing. I don't know that I need any capital expenditure for that quite yet. Ah, yes. This is the bell tower. They call it the bell tower. It's in quotation marks. It is a tall computer that controls our bells, clocks, and announcements. We were told at the last visit, right now to operate this, you plug a touch-tone phone into it to program it. So that'll give you a sense of how old it is.
Hey, at least
so
it's
we
not
were
rotary. Come on.
right. So we were told at our last service visit, which was last week, that the CPU is going, the central processing unit of this computer is going. It's from the 90s, so that makes sense. And the current system is expensive to maintain. It's about $1,500 to get a repairman out, right, Joe? $1,500,
Minimum,
$1,500,
yeah.
to get a service call on this 30-year-old machine. So it is responsible not just for bells. If it were only bells that we were talking about that were running through this machine, I'd be willing to have a conversation about just going bell-less at the high school. But it's not just bells. It's our clocks. It's our announcements. All of those things run through this machine, and so we need to have a solution for it. And one of these days it's going to die. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, probably $50,000 to $60,000 to replace this.
So I've been talking with Mr. Ganesh on spearheading this replacement. We have met with a couple vendors. It's night and day what's out there now. Like your bell schedule, you log in from your pajamas at home and you can change the bell schedule through a web GUI.
Right.
And then all the clocks are digital, they're PoE powered, or there's retrofit models because we're high voltage here. And this is a unique system because it's 25 volts. It's not 70 volts or 8 ohm, it's 25. So that dates it pretty well. The good thing is though, the existing speaker wiring can be reused, so that'll save a lot of money. They don't have to pull new cabling
Right.
to all the zones. But the speakers themselves would probably have to be replaced, and the clocks would need new cabling pulled, either Cat 6, which I would recommend.
So
So we
al-
are looking at it.
we also know that the PA is very important for emergency purposes as well. So as we prioritize our thinking about things and we talk about things, to me, that is a heightened level.
Yeah.
As compared to some of the other things that we've discussed. That doesn't mean that the other things aren't important. Just when we talk about safety, you know, that has changed throughout the years. In my 30 years, it's completely different now. And a PA system is completely and utterly necessary for us to move forward. And we are thinking of PA systems for all of our buildings, not just for the high school.
I mean, think about just the number of announcements I made today.
Oh.
Dean and Joe were both here when we had our small electrical fire.
Couldn't hear a word you said.
Well, you were in the cafeteria.
Goes to the point. It's a
But
different place.
yeah, sure. But they could hear me in the classrooms. My point is that, like, I made 5 announcements today to keep people abreast of how we were handling the situation. That's not something I can do in real time over email or really in any other way.
Yep. How quickly, on the previous slide, there's the garbage pails.
Back one.
Oh, that's the backside of the, of the replacement transformer. The, conversations that you had with Mr. Ganesh, how close are you to getting dollars associated with that?
They have to come back out to take a look at the bell tower again to tighten up some numbers.
Could
So
we have-
within a couple of weeks, I would imagine.
Could we have a second level discussion on this then in October?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jim, you can work on how that could potentially fit in with the timeline? Okay. Thank you. Okay, proceed.
I wanted to just add to that comment, Ms. White, because I understand that there are challenges at East and West, and I thought we were going to look at this as a package deal for all 3 schools. Is that still a possibility?
Yes, I can talk to the vendor
You know,
about
I
that.
think their clocks are off, bell systems, there are issues with the PAs. I don't know the details, but I know that it's come up, and we should probably look into that and consider that, the combination. Thanks.
And even now that these can now push, like, it can push to your boards too, so that if there's an emergency, it will push a message and override what's on your board in your classroom. It will, yeah, it can change it can do all kinds of things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Put it on the screen.
East, west, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, thanks. That's it for me.
And one last slide for me, you know, me and my love of transformers. So at least this one was Pico owned. So we noticed on an inspection that the transformer at Middle School East was leaking out of the cooling fins. Pico's like, we've never seen that before. They had this thing, I called up, put a ticket in. I was talking to people in California, all over the country to get this replaced in under 24 hours. So they mobilized around 10 p.m. and we were down on generator for a couple hours. Everything was back up at 3 a.m. So it was a long day for me. So, yeah. I don't even know. Yeah, it was a school day. I'd have to go back, but it was, yeah. And they didn't have a transformer that size because it was so old. That was the original one, so they upped our transformer. Like, we hope it fits on the pad. So the new one's on the right, yeah. And their main concern was, based on that age, was the PCBs and the oil, because these are filled with oil, with the chemicals. So once they heard it was leaking out, they jumped on it. So, yeah.
Now, you may recall, last year before school started, we had a transformer go.
It wasn't before school started.
It was the
Oh,
first day.
It
of
was the
school.
first day. Oh, that's correct.
remember distinctly.
That was owned by the district. So that was owned by the district, so we had a much different response. We worked with CM3 to get that one done.
And that was
In this
within
particular
a
case,
day.
yeah, this was Pico, and they responded almost immediately. I'll spare you the colorful language Mr. Fabrizio had about 10 o'clock at night, about how encouraged he was by Pico. Okay, and that's all we have for tonight. Any questions? All right, again, we've got a lot of work to do to come back in October, get ready for the board meeting as well. And, you know, stay tuned. We'll work on the capital projects next month, some more lists and go over some of that stuff so we can prepare. Last year, we actually did a neat thing where we took the top 30, we prioritized in safety and operations, and that's what we provided to the school board. If we're interested in that, we can do that same thing, same way. All right? Thank you all.